what if your insurance rate didn't go up because of what actually happened, but because of bad data that nobody wanted to fix?
Yeah, that is a terrifying thought.
Right. I mean, you listen to that audio clip from our source material today, and there's just this casual indifference in the representative's voice.
Oh, completely. It's the sound of a system that has just entirely, decoupled itself from objective reality.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're exploring in today's deep dive. We're looking at a paper trail that documents basically a total collapse of the foundational premise of risk assessment in the insurance industry.
Which is supposed to be, based on facts, on reality.
Right.
Yeah.
But the sources you've shared with us, and we're talking about certified denial letters, official DMV records, internal screenshots from Geico and Progressive, they don't just point to, like, an isolated clerical error.
No, not at all. They map out this highly profitable systemic data contagion.
And our mission today is to dissect the mechanics of that, this shadow profile. We're going to look at how a multi-billion-dollar carrier can deny a maximum limit $50,000 bodily injury claim based on total fault, while at the exact same time, their own back-end quoting engine categorizes that exact collision as a no-fault incident.
It's honestly wild. I mean, the documentation reveals this massive structural schism between legal liability and algorithmic risk profiling.
Yeah, the left hand literally doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Oh.
Or worse, it does know and just doesn't care.
Right, because in a functional underwriting environment, data ingestion is designed to build a highly accurate predictive model of how a driver is going to behave in the future.
Sure, that's the whole point of insurance algorithms.
But what the Markle documents expose, and the Markles are the subjects of our sources today, Jessica and Joshua Markle, what these documents expose is a pipeline that actually incentivizes data degradation.
Wow, incentivizes it.
Yeah. We're going to trace the specific transmission failures, the legacy system silos, all the actuarial frameworks that basically allow these institutions to operate two contradictory sets of books.
And without facing any immediate regulatory sanction, which is the craziest part to me.
Right.
But, to really understand the severity of this systemic failure, we first have to establish the baseline truth, like the Markle's real-world driving history.
Exactly. You have to see the pristine reality before you can understand the algorithmic hallucination. That contrast is the core of this whole analysis.
So let's start with the official state of Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles reports for both Jessica and Joshua Markle.
The real deal.
The real deal. These are certified documents processed in early 2026. And, when you pull a 10-year and a 3-year history printout from a state agency, you are looking at the foundational legal document.
Right. It governs your right to operate a vehicle in that state.
Exactly. So I'm looking at Jessica's records right now. It literally says, in all caps, no withdrawals on file, no convictions on file, and exactly 0 demerit points.
A completely clean slate.
100% claim.
Yeah.
And Joshua's 10-year report is the exact same. 0 demerit points, no convictions.
Which is, in data architecture, what you'd call your single immutable source of truth. You always designate one of those to prevent synchronization errors.
A golden source, right?
Exactly. The state DMV is supposed to be that golden source. I mean, if a moving violation or a legally recognized at-fault accident isn't aggregated there, it effectively does not exist.
At least in the eyes of the state's licensing authority.
Right. Because state DMV databases, they operate on these very rigid batch processing systems. They require strict legal thresholds for data entry.
Meaning you can't just throw a rumor in there.
Right. A police officer issues a citation, the court has to adjudicate it, and only upon conviction or legal settlement is the data written to the DMV mainframe.
It's slow, but it's accurate.
Exactly. It's a methodical pipeline designed to protect the citizen's legal standing.
But the insurance industry doesn't like slow, do they?
Not at all. They rely on high-velocity data brokers. Companies like LexisNexis or the Comprehensive Loss Underwriting Exchange, which most people just call CLUE.
CLUE, right.
Yep.
So what do these brokers actually do?
Well, they ingest real-time claims data from thousands of carriers simultaneously. It's just a massive fire hose of information.
Okay, but then where does the conflict come in?
The conflict arises because the insurance carriers treat that high-velocity, low-fidelity data from the broker feeds as their operational reality. They actively ignore the slow-moving, high-fidelity state DMV records.
I mean, I am really struggling to accept the premise that a massive financial institution can just choose to ignore the golden source when it contradicts their third-party
It
feeds.
sounds absurd when you say it out loud, doesn't it?
It really does. Look, if you're operating a complex network like, say, an automated credit routing system, and your core routing table shows a clear path,
Right.
but then some unverified external node tells you the path is blocked, you don't just instantly and permanently reroute all your traffic based on the external node.
No, you would verify. You'd ping the core table.
Exactly. But here, the insurance companies are acting as if that unverified node is the only data that matters.
It's like getting a certified A+ on your college transcript, but an invisible third-party database tells all your potential employers that you actually failed.
Yes. And nobody will even let you see the test scores. They're just penalizing you for a routing error they refuse to investigate.
And we see this explicitly in that first audio snippet from Dairyland Insurance.
Oh man, that audio. A representative just cheerfully informs Joshua that his motor vehicle report came back with 2 at-fault accidents, one on August 4th and another on April 30th of 2025.
2 accidents that completely bypass the Nevada DMV's legally mandated reported structure.
They just don't exist on the state record. At all.
And the representative's phrasing there is really critical. Did you catch what they said?
Let me look at the transcript. They said, here's what actually, counted on your motor vehicle reports.
Right there. They're conflating the internal aggregated broker report with the official state motor vehicle report.
Oh, wow. So they're calling their own internal file a motor vehicle report to make it sound official.
Exactly. It is a standard tactic in frontline customer service scripts. By using the terminology of the state, they lend this false legal authority to what is really just a proprietary algorithmic output.
That is so deceptive. The system flags 2 dates, applies an at-fault Boolean, and the representative simply reads the output.
Yeah. And the discrepancy between the zero demerit golden source and this 2-accident shadow profile, it highlights a massive breakdown in the data validation layer.
Because the carrier's ingestion engine is just accepting the broker's flags without running a basic comparative query against the state database.
They just take the broker's word for it.
We're definitely going to dig into the mechanics of how those specific 2025 phantom accidents were generated in a minute, because the mutation of that data is fascinating.
Oh, it really is.
But, the sheer administrative burden this places on the consumer is severe. I mean, Joshua's phantom accidents caused immediate pricing friction, obviously.
Right, his rates spiked.
But the true catastrophic failure of this whole decoupled architecture, it crystallized around a much higher stakes incident involving Jessica just months prior to that, on October 11th, 2024.
Yes. This incident is crucial because it demonstrates what happens when the shadow profile moves from just, merely inflating your premiums to actively denying major financial obligations.
Exactly. The October 11th collision really transitions our analysis from passive algorithmic bias to an active claims defense strategy.
The source material provides a certified return receipt letter from Dairyland Insurance to Jessica Markle. It's dated February 20, 2025.
And this document, it's a formal declaration of the carrier's liability stance, right?
Right.
Regarding a demand for an uninsured motorist bodily injury coverage limit of $50,000.
Right. We need to parse the narrative of the crash exactly as the carrier codified it in this denial letter, because their subsequent legal framing is heavily dependent on the specific physical parameters of what happened.
Okay, so according to the carrier's own summary of the police report, Jessica was driving a rented Ford F-150, and she was carrying a 2013 Harley-Davidson Sportster in the bed of the truck.
That is a lot of weight.
A ton of weight. So she looked down at her speedometer, and when she looked back up, she was rapidly approaching a semi-truck that was moving at a... Okay, for anyone listening who isn't a lawyer, how does pure comparative negligence usually work?
Well, this framework mandates that fault can be apportioned on a sliding scale.
Like percentages.
Exactly. If a plaintiff is, say, 99% responsible for an incident, they can theoretically still recover 1% of the damages from a defendant who contributed to the hazard.
Oh, wow. So it's rarely ever just all or nothing.
Usually, no. Now, in rear-end collisions, there is a strong rebuttable presumption that the trailing driver is negligent.
Right, because you're supposed to leave enough space.
Exactly. However, the presence of a drastically slow-moving commercial vehicle on a highway introduces a massive variable for shared liability. The commercial operator has a legal duty to maintain minimum safe speeds or deploy hazard indicators.
But Dairyland's claims department just completely bypassed all of that nuance. I mean, I'm looking at the letter, and it bluntly states, quote, Based on all evidence we currently have, we found that you were 100% at fault for the loss.
100%.
They didn't assign 80% fault to her and 20% to the semi-truck, which would have kept a portion of that $50,000 demand in play.
Right. They deployed the absolute maximum liability designation.
By declaring 100% fault, they severed the legal requirement to pay out a single dollar of the uninsured motorist bodily injury claim.
It is a tactical firewall. They are using the rebuttable presumption of a rear-end collision not as a starting point for negotiation, but as an absolute shield against a maximum limit exposure.
It's just so aggressive.
A 100% fault designation in a pure comparative negligence jurisdiction involving complex velocity differentials. It's an extraordinary actuarial stance.
What did that suggest about their internal processes then?
It suggests a claims adjudication flowchart that is designed to terminate high-limit exposures at the earliest possible stage, regardless of the granular details of the police report.
So that phrase, based on all evidence we currently have, that's just legal boilerplate.
Completely. It's designed to insulate the carrier from bad faith claims while they preemptively lock the vault on the money.
Man, and if the analysis stopped right here, it would simply be a harsh example of aggressive claims defense. You see that in the industry.
You do. But the paper trail you provided contains a contradiction so severe, it really calls into question the fundamental integrity of the carrier's entire data infrastructure.
Okay, so let's get into the smoking gun, because this is where the story takes a massive, contradictory turn. This elevates it from aggressive defense to systemic negligence.
Yes. Source 16.
Source 16. I practically jumped out of my seat when I saw this.
Yeah.
This is the screenshot pulled directly from Dairyland's own internal quoting system. Under the driving records input, mapping directly to Jessica Markle for the exact date of October 11, 2024, the internal software categorizes the accident as not at fault.
It is astonishing. The claims department issues a legally binding certified letter denying a $50,000 payout based on 100% fault, while the underwriting department's proprietary software classifies the same event on the same date involving the same driver as a no-fault incident.
How does that even happen?
Well, this internal contradiction exposes the heavily siloed architecture of legacy insurance mainframes. Claims adjudication and actuarial underwriting, they frequently operate on completely separate tech stacks.
So they don't talk to each other.
Exactly. The claims system is designed for historical liability management, basically mitigating past exposures.
Protecting the money they already have.
Right. But the underwriting system is a predictive engine. It's designed to calculate future risk premiums based on ingested data feeds.
So when a carrier's own left hand declares total legal culpability to avoid a payout, and its right hand declares innocence based on internal algorithms.
We're observing a catastrophic failure of data synchronization, or, more cynically.
We're observing a system where the lack of synchronization is tolerated because both conflicting data points serve the carrier's financial interests.
Precisely. And just look at the timeline this creates for the consumer.
It's an absolute nightmare. Let's connect the dates for everyone listening.
Yeah.
The accident was in October 2024. The certified denial letter arrived in February 2025. And the Markles are forced to pull their immaculate Nevada DMV records in early 2026 just to establish a baseline of reality.
They spend 18 months trapped in administrative purgatory.
18 months. For a year and a half, Jessica is fighting for a legitimate bodily injury claim against a wall of 100% fault, while deep inside the carrier's own servers, a database row quietly confirms she was not at fault.
The psychological toll of battling a bureaucracy that possesses these exculpatory data but structurally refuses to access it, it's just immense.
I can't even imagine. And the burden of auditing the multi-billion-dollar carrier's internal contradictions falls entirely on the injured party.
It does. The concept of Conway's Law is highly applicable here, actually.
Conway's Law. Remind me what that is.
It states that organizations design systems that basically mirror their own internal communication structures.
Oh, interesting.
So if the claims department is structurally isolated from the underwriting department, their soft link interfaces will lack the necessary APIs to cross-verify data.
So the claims adjuster, reviewing the $50,000 demand, physically cannot see the not at fault flag sitting over in the quoting engine.
Right. And the automated quoting engine determining the renewal premium cannot read the certified denial letter. The architecture guarantees a fragmented reality.
See, I cannot accept fragmented reality as a benign excuse when the outcome consistently penalizes the consumer. At what point does bad data cross the line from a tech glitch to systemic negligence?
That is the million-dollar question.
I mean, if you or I kept two sets of books with contradictory information to benefit ourselves financially, we'd be in serious trouble.
We would be in prison.
Exactly. If a core routing network fragments, the packets drop, the system throws an error, and engineers fix it. The network doesn't quietly decide to just charge the user double for the dropped packets.
But that is exactly what this data contagion does, which brings us all the way back to Joshua's 2025 phantom accidents.
Right, because this bad data doesn't just sit in one company's files. It spreads across the entire industry. Dairyland was penalizing Joshua for 2 at-fault collisions that their own representative just casually read off a screen.
To understand how those phantom collisions materialize, we have to look at the screenshots and audio from Geico.
Let's do it, because the Geico internal data really provides the decryption key for this whole Dairyland hallucination.
It does. The Geico representative explicitly confirms on audio that the incidents in question are, quote, vandalism, so those are not at fault.
And the internal Geico screenshots corroborate this perfectly. We see 2 specific claims ending in 005 and another ending in 0000002. The text on the screen clearly states, vandalism is considered to be a comprehensive claim. Based on the information you have given us, you are not at fault for this incident.
There's even a manual annotation in the screenshot. A drawn black arrow pointing directly to the words, not at fault.
So Geico correctly processed the events as random acts of property damage perpetrated by an unknown third party. Then how does a comprehensive vandalism claim correctly processed by Geico mutate into an at-fault collision when it hits Dairyland screens a few months later?
It's insane, right?
It is. The data transmission protocols must be deeply flawed. You don't just accidentally flip a Boolean from vandalism to at-fault driving accident without a systemic failure in how the loss codes are translated across the industry.
Exactly. The mutation occurs within the data broker ingestion layer.
Okay, break that down for me. How does the ingestion layer mess this up so badly?
Well, when Geico resolves the vandalism claim, their backend generates an XML or JSON payload, and that payload is pushed to centralized repositories like CLUE or LexisNexis.
So it's basically a digital package of information.
Right, and this payload contains multiple data fields. It has the date, the payout amount, the primary loss code, and various subcodes detailing the specific nature of the comprehensive claim.
So Geico packs the box with all the necessary details. It says it's vandalism, it's not at fault, here's the date.
Yes. However, the legacy mainframes of other carriers, like Dairyland, they often utilize simplified API calls when querying these brokers for a quick quote.
Wait, why would they use simplified calls?
To reduce latency and compute costs. Their system might only pull the date and the binary fact that a payout occurred.
Oh, wow. So they strip out the payload's nuance just to save processing power.
Essentially, yes. The query just asks, did an event happen on this date? The broker says, yes, a claim was paid. And Dairyland's ingestion script just defaults to categorizing any undefined paid claim as an at-fault accident.
That is just algorithmic laziness.
It really is.
They build a parser that drops the comprehensive vandalism subcode, sees the raw payout, and instantly weaponizes it as a risk indicator to justify the premium hike.
That is the most probable mechanical explanation. The data normalization process across different carrier architectures destroys the context of the event entirely.
And because the entire industry relies on these same centralized data broker monopolies, the corrupted payload acts as a contagion.
Exactly. You can't just switch insurance companies to escape it. The shadow profile follows you. The mutated data is just waiting for you at the next carrier.
And we see that perfectly with the Progressive screenshot.
Yeah, that screenshot is damning.
The Markles attempt to leave the corrupted Dairyland system, right? But Progressive's interface explicitly tells them, we've updated your rate based on third-party reports.
Progressive is querying the exact same poisoned CLUE database.
They are completely bypassing the pristine Nevada DMV golden source and relying entirely on the mutated, context-free shadow profile floating in the data broker servers.
Which creates this false illusion of choice in the modern insurance marketplace.
You think you can just shop around.
Right. You believe you are participating in a competitive market, shopping your risk profile to different underwriters, but in reality, you are being evaluated by a singular, unified, deeply flawed data model.
The competitive pricing algorithms are all feeding from the same corrupted trough.
And this monopoly on risk data effectively neutralizes any market forces that would otherwise punish a company for relying on inaccurate intelligence.
So let's ask the ultimate question for everyone listening. What does this actually cost you?
The numbers are terrifying.
The financial extraction authorized by this corrupted intelligence is just staggering. Let's run the exact math using the provided progressive screenshots.
Go for it.
Okay, so the initial baseline quote, this is the algorithm's assessment of the Markle's actual clean driving record before the shadow profile was queried,
Right.
was $476.77 for 6 months.
Which comes out to about $2,800 for the year.
Yeah, $2,865 exactly, when paid in installments.
Yeah.
But the moment the third-party reports trigger,
The API pulls the mutated vandalism data.
exactly, the rate updates dynamically,
Yeah.
and the new demand is a staggering $1,051.88 just to initiate the policy.
Oh my God.
The annualized total skyrockets to $6,315.
That is insane. The system just executes a $3,450 premium increase based on a data parser error.
Purely based on false information. And we see a similar wild swing in Dairyland's quotes, too. It jumps from a basic quote of $2,359 a year up to over $5,453 a year.
Again, based on updated information, we really have to analyze this through the lens of inelastic demand.
What do you mean by inelastic demand in this context?
Well, automobile insurance is legally mandated in almost every jurisdiction. You literally cannot legally operate a vehicle, commute to employment, or participate in the modern economy without it.
So the consumer has zero leverage.
Zero. When an algorithmic monopoly holds your required legal credential hostage behind a black box pricing engine, the pricing model ceases to be a calculation of risk. It becomes an exercise in maximum financial extraction.
You are effectively held financially hostage. It's like getting a bill for a meal you never ate at a restaurant you never visited, and when you show them your GPS, proving you are at home.
They say, sorry, our third-party data says you ordered the lobster.
Yes.
And you still have to pay. It is the definition of algorithmic extortion, and it connects right back to the $50K denied claim too. The Markles are being squeezed on the front end with premiums doubling and denied on the back end when legitimate claims are rejected.
It's a complete vice grip. And if a core banking system hallucinated a negative balance and froze your assets, you'd have immediate recourse under federal banking regulations.
But with data brokers.
With data brokers, you fall under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA, which ostensibly governs these agencies. But it contains massive loopholes regarding the speed and efficacy of dispute resolution for specialty consumer reporting agencies.
So the Markles are forced to pay the extortion rate of over $6,000 just to keep their vehicles legally registered, while they embark on a multi-year crusade to correct an XML parsing error between Geico and LexisNexis.
How does the dispute process even work? Like if they say, this is wrong, doesn't the broker have to fix it?
The FCRA requires data furnishers to conduct a reasonable investigation when a consumer disputes a file.
Reasonable sounds like a very flexible word.
It is deeply flawed in practice. Often, the broker simply pings the original furnisher, in this case Geico, and asks, did you report a claim on this date?
And Geico's automated system just responds, yes, a claim was reported.
Exactly. The broker marks the dispute as verified and closes the ticket. They completely ignore the nuanced, not-at-fault documentation the consumer provided.
So the automated verification loop is closed, and the consumer just remains trapped in the shadow profile.
Forever.
Which forces us to ask the most disturbing question of this entire analysis and brings us back to that opening quote. Why doesn't anyone want to fix it?
Yeah, that is the dark heart of this whole thing.
If the ingestion layers are this brittle, if the parsing scripts are aggressively dropping context, why hasn't a carrier invested the engineering resources to build a more accurate data pipeline?
We have to look at the systemic incentives here and the concept of rational ignorance in corporate architecture.
Rational ignorance, meaning they know they're ignorant, but it's rational to stay that way.
Precisely. If an insurance carrier's automated systems are designed to default to at fault whenever an ambiguous data packet is received, the carrier benefits via a dual-action profit mechanism.
A dual-action profit mechanism.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the front end first.
On the front end, as we saw with the Progressive and Dairyland quotes, the hallucinated fault allows them to instantly justify massive, unearned premium increases across their entire portfolio.
They extract thousands of dollars in excess revenue from the consumer.
Right. And on the back end, as we saw with Jessica's $50,000 claim, the aggressive fault designation creates the required paper trail to completely deny high-limit payouts.
They extract on the premium, and they shield on the liability. They benefit twice from the exact same bad data.
The actuarial math makes the apathy highly profitable. Just consider the capital expenditure required to overhaul the data ingestion pipeline.
It would be massive, right?
It would require thousands of engineering hours to build complex APIs capable of parsing every subcode from every data broker.
Plus, standardizing the definitions across 50 different state jurisdictions.
And continually auditing that data against official state DMV batch files. It would cost tens of millions of dollars to implement.
And what's the return on that massive investment? The carrier would instantly lose the ability to charge the Markles $6,000, and they would be forced to pay out the $50,000 claim.
Exactly. They would be spending millions of dollars to permanently reduce their own revenue.
Wow, so the technical debt is actually an asset.
The brittle APIs and the dropped JSON payloads aren't bugs. They are highly optimized features of a revenue-generating machine.
But where is the oversight? I mean, if the official state DMV says you're clean and the insurer's own quoting system says you're not at fault, how is the burden still on the consumer to spend 18 months fighting this?
Because the regulatory environment simply doesn't possess the technical fluency to audit these black box pipelines.
They don't know what they're looking at.
An insurance commissioner looks at the carrier's filings, sees that they are rating based on third-party claim data, and stamps it approved. The regulator doesn't have the mandate, or frankly the engineers, to dive into the specific code base mapping Geico's vandalism taxonomy to Dairyland's fault tables.
So the consumer's just left completely isolated, fighting a war of attrition against an algorithm that never sleeps.
And the Markles executed a flawless defense. Think about it. They secured the golden source DMV records. They intercepted the internal proprietary screenshots.
They captured the contradictory audio confessions.
Oh.
And they documented the exact moment the pricing algorithms mutated.
Yet, despite holding absolute proof of systemic failure, they remain trapped in that 18-month administrative purgatory, forced to shoulder the financial burden of the carrier's calculated data degradation.
This entire deep dive has been just a staggering look at institutional arrogance. I mean, we started with the absolute clarity of a pristine Nevada DMV record, the legal reality. We watched that reality get completely overwritten by a shadow profile generated by careless data brokers. We saw how a carrier could simultaneously wield a 100% at fault legal denial against a $50,000 bodily injury claim, while their own internal code categorized the event as not at fault.
Right. And we traced the transmission of a vandalism claim as it mutated into a collision, doubling a premium from $2,800 to over $6,000.
It is a comprehensive case study in how unregulated data monopolies can distort reality to serve the financial imperatives of the institutions that control the algorithms. I really want you to look at your own digital footprint in the wake of this. If this level of algorithmic distortion can entangle a family who meticulously documented every interaction, pulled their state files, and captured the internal system errors, it is undoubtedly operating quietly in the background of your own auto policy.
And this demands we look beyond just the insurance industry, too.
Oh, for sure.
Next time you accept a slight bump in your insurance premium, attributing it to inflation or market rates, ask yourself, are you actually paying for the economy, or are you paying for a phantom accident in a shadow database that you don't even know exists? The mechanics of the shadow profile we've analyzed today, the ingestion of low-fidelity third-party data, the dropping of crucial context, the refusal to correct known errors because those errors are profitable.
These are the exact same mechanics driving the expansion of predictive algorithms across every single sector.
We are looking at a terrifying preview of algorithmic determinism.
If an unverified database can legally overwrite your state-certified driving history, what happens when similar proprietary models ingest your health data, or your financial transactions, or your spatial location data?
We are rapidly approaching a reality where your physical actions matter far less than the shadow profile built by data brokers you cannot see.
Using code you cannot audit to generate risk scores you cannot dispute. You might find yourself denied a mortgage, flagged by predictive policing software, or locked out of the healthcare system entirely, all based on a parsing error in a database that nobody wants to fix. Go request your own third-party data reports. Check your data feeds. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of algorithmic liability.